Before there was a road, there was a path. Before there was a city, there was a forest. Before there were borders, there was land. Before humanity learned to call the earth a resource, earth was simply home. If you like this content, like the video, subscribe for more transmissions from the galaxy. And if you would like to take a journey soul to soul, there is a link in the description. Listen, not with your ears. Listen with the part of you that remembers. Because beneath the noise of the modern world, beneath the machines, beneath the arguments, beneath the fear, there is an older voice. A voice that has never stopped speaking. The voice of the rivers, the voice of the mountain, the voice of the wind, the voice of the ancestors, the voice of every mother who ever held a child and wondered what kind of world that child would inherit. And tonight, that voice is calling you home. I am the warrior mother. I am not here to conquer you. I am here to remind you. I am the mother beneath your feet. I am the soil beneath your hands. I am the water inside your body. I am the breath entering your lungs. I am the fire that warms you. I am the storm that reminds you that you are not separate from nature. You came from me, and one day you will return to me. But between those two moments, you have been given something sacred, a choice. What will you do with the time you have been given? Will you remain asleep? Will you surrender your voice? Will you allow fear to decide your future? Or will you remember who you are? There comes a moment in every generation when the old world begins to crack. Not because the earth has abandoned humanity, but because humanity has been given another opportunity to awaken. And perhaps you are living inside such a moment now. There is a message beneath the land. It has been carried through generations. It was carried by people who walked beneath skies untouched by towers. It was carried by mothers who taught their children the names of plants, by fathers who understood the movement of animals, by elders who remembered where the water ran, by storytellers who understood that history was not merely something written in books. History lived in the land. It lived in the bones. It lived in the songs. It lived in the memory. And every generation receives that memory, then makes a choice. We can protect it. We can forget it. Or we can transform it. But something happens when people become disconnected from the ground beneath them. They begin to forget that every meal begins with soil. Every breath begins with plants. Every river begins somewhere. Every civilization depends upon water. Every child depends upon a future. And suddenly, the things that are priceless begin to look like commodities. The forest becomes timber. The river becomes a resource. The mountain becomes an opportunity. The land becomes property. And the earth becomes a number on a balance sheet. But the land remembers. The mountain remembers. The rivers remember. The generations remember. The earth does not speak our language, but she communicates through drought, through fire, through storms, through seasons that shift, through species that disappear, through forests that struggle, through water that becomes precious. These are not necessarily punishments. They are signals, warnings, reminders. The earth is not asking humanity for worship. She is asking humanity to understand her, to live within her, to stop imagining that survival is possible without relationship. Because you cannot destroy the foundation of your home, then expect the house to remain standing. And so, the warrior mother rises, not as a soldier, not as a queen demanding obedience, not as a goddess asking for sacrifice. She rises as a protector of children, a protector of water, a protector of forests, a protector of memory, a protector of the future. Her weapon is not hatred. Her weapon is awareness. Her shield is courage. Her armor is truth. And her greatest power is refusing to forget. The warrior mother knows something humanity has forgotten. Power does not always look like force. Sometimes power is saying no. Sometimes power is walking away. Sometimes power is planting something you may never live long enough to see fully grow. Sometimes power is teaching a child to love their land. Sometimes power is protecting a river. Sometimes power is telling the truth when silence would be easier. And sometimes power is simply remembering that you have a choice. You have been told that power belongs somewhere else. In distant buildings, in institutions, in governments, in corporations, in wealth, in titles, in people who speak louder than everyone else. But the warrior mother whispers, look again. Power begins within the human being. It begins within consciousness. It begins with choices. It begins with communities. It begins with people deciding that their lives will no longer be guided entirely by fear. Taking your power back does not mean taking power away from someone else. It means reclaiming responsibility for yourself, your voice, your choice, your attention, your values, your relationship with the world. That is where revolution begins. Not with destruction, with awakening. Imagine for a moment that every generation before you could stand behind you. Not to judge you, not to condemn you, simply to ask one question. What do you do with what was given to you? The people before you inherited a world. They built, they struggled, they survived, they made mistakes. They created beauty. They endured loss. They carried the stories. And eventually, they handed the world to you. Now you stand here holding the same responsibility. And behind you stands another generation. Children not yet old enough to understand what is happening. Children who will inherit whatever choices are made today. They will inherit the forest we protect and the forest we destroy, the water we preserve and the water we contaminate, the wisdom we teach and the wisdom we abandon. The courage we demonstrate and the fear we normalize. The future is not some distant place. The future is already standing behind you. It has the face of a child. It is watching. It is learning. It is waiting. And the question is not, will the world change? The world will change. The question is, what kind of people will we become while it changes? And then comes the eclipse. For thousands of years, humanity has looked upward when the lights disappear. An eclipse can make us uncomfortable because it reminds us that even something as constant as daylight can temporarily vanish. The sun remains, but our view changes. The sky changes. The atmosphere changes. And for a brief moment, the world becomes unfamiliar. Perhaps that is why the eclipse carries such a powerful symbolism. Because darkness does not always mean destruction. Sometimes darkness is transition. Sometimes you cannot see the road behind you because you are being asked to stop looking backwards. The eclipse becomes a threshold, a moment between what was and what comes next. The warrior mother stands at the threshold. She does not promise that the next chapter will be easy. She does not promise that every answer will appear immediately. She says something much more important. Keep walking. Trust the next step. You do not need to see the entire road to take the first step. There are seasons when life asks us to release what we thought we knew. Old identities, old fears, old patterns, old stories, old definitions of success, old ideas about who we are supposed to become. And when those things fall away, it can feel like darkness. But darkness can also be a womb. And inside the womb, something new is forming. There is a new adventure approaching. Not necessarily a destination, an adventure, a chapter, a possibility, a doorway. And the warrior mother says, do not demand that the future look exactly like the past. Do not ask the new world to resemble the old one. You are entering something different. And different doesn't automatically mean dangerous. Sometimes different means alive. Sometimes different means growth. Sometimes different means freedom from patterns that have been repeated for generations. You may not know what is coming. That is the point. If you already knew every detail, it would not be an adventure. There would be uncertainty. There will be moments of doubt. There will be moments when the old world tries to convince you to return. But remember this: the seed does not know the shape of the tree. The caterpillar does not understand the butterfly. The dawn cannot be seen from every hour of night. Transformation requires trust. Not blind trust, not surrendering your judgment, but trust in your ability to meet what comes. You have survived things you once believed would destroy you. You have crossed thresholds you once believed you could never cross. You are stronger than the version of yourself that entered the journey. And perhaps the next chapter is asking you to discover that. So I ask you, what does it mean to take your power back? It means reclaiming your attention. Because whatever controls your attention influences your reality. It means questioning what you are told, not rejecting everything, not believing everything, but thinking, observing, listening, and learning. It means understanding that outrage is not the same as action. Fear is not the same as truth. And noise is not the same as wisdom. Taking your power back means choosing where you place your energy. Who receives your attention? What receives your time? What receives your money? What receives your voice? What do you create? What do you protect? And then what do you teach? These are not small questions. They are building blocks of civilization Because civilization is not transformed only by leaders. They are transformed by millions of ordinary choices. A person choosing to care, another person choosing to speak, another person choosing to teach, and another person choosing to plant, another person choosing to protect, and another choosing to listen. And suddenly, a moment exists. Not because someone ordered it into existence, but because people remembered that they belong to one another. There is another lesson the warrior mother carries. The land does not belong to us. We belong to the land. For a moment, consider the difference. If the land belongs to us, then we can imagine ourselves as owners. But if we belong to the land, then we become caretakers, guardians, participants, relatives, and that changes everything. The river is no longer simply something that passes through your community. It becomes part of your community. The forest is no longer merely scenery. It becomes part of your survival. The animals no longer are background characters. They become part of a living system that supports our life. And the earth becomes something more than a planet beneath your feet. She becomes home. The warrior mother does not ask you to become perfect. She asks you to become conscious. You will make mistakes. So will I. So will every generation. The question is whether we learn, whether we repair, whether we change direction, whether we leave something better than we found it. Listen closely. Do you hear it? The echo. It is not one voice. It is many. The voice of an ancestor, the cry of a mother, the laughter of a child, the sound of rain, the cracking of ice, the movement of the ocean, the beating wings of a bird, the thunder above the mountains, the roots beneath the soil. All of it part of the same living story. And perhaps the message has always been simple. Remember where you come from. Remember what sustained you. Remember the generations before you. Remember the generations after. Remember that you are not separate. Remember that fear is not the only possible response to uncertainty. Remember that courage can be quiet. Hope is not weakness. Protection is an act of love. And remember, you are still capable of choosing. If you are watching this and you feel lost, this message is for you. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need to know exactly where your life is going. You do not need to possess every answer. You are allowed to be in transition. You are allowed to grieve the version of yourself that is disappearing. You are allowed to be uncertain. You are allowed to begin again. The warrior mother does not shame you for being afraid. She stands beside you. She says, take a breath. Feel the ground. Look at the sky. You are here. And because you are here, there is still a choice. One small choice, then another, and then another. That is how a new life is built. Not all at once, step by step. And to the warriors, I do not mean only those who carry weapons. I mean the protectors, the healers, the teachers, the parents, the elders, the young people who refuse to become cynical, the people who stand between destruction and what they love, the people who keep showing up, the people who plant trees, who protect water, who preserve stories, the people who teach children where they come from, the people who refuse to forget. You are warriors too. Your battlefield may be a classroom, a kitchen, a community, a forest, a river, a conversation, a garden, a workshop, or simply your own mind. Because one of the greatest battles of this age is the battle of human attention. The battle to remain awake, to remain compassionate, to remain capable of thinking, to remain capable of loving, to remain human. When the sky darkens, do not immediately assume the light has disappeared. The sun is still there. You simply cannot see it in the same way. And perhaps this is what the eclipse teaches. There are periods in life when the truth is temporarily obscured. There are seasons when the future is hidden. There are moments when everything familiar becomes uncertain. But hidden does not mean gone. The light can still exist beyond what you can see. So if you're standing at the edge of a new chapter, do not demand certainty before moving. Use discernment, use wisdom, ask questions, pay attention. But do not allow uncertainty to imprison you. The warrior mother looks towards the horizon and says, walk. Not because you know everything. Walk because you are willing to discover. Perhaps the greatest message from the land is not prophecy. It is a promise. A promise we make to the generations. A promise that says, we will remember, we will learn, we will protect what we can see. We will question the needs to be questioned. We will listen to those who have carried wisdom before us. We will teach those who come after us. We will not surrender our humanity to fear. We will not confuse destruction with strength. We will not confuse domination with power. We will continue to not confuse noise with truth. We will not forget that the earth is our home. This is the promise of the warrior mother. Not perfection. Responsibility, not fear, courage, not control, relationship, not destruction, protection, not surrender, awareness. And now the warrior mother turns towards you. She places one hand upon the earth and one hand upon her heart. And she says, my children, you have been searching outside yourselves for power to change the world. But I have been waiting for you to remember the power begins within. It begins with what you choose, what you protect, what you believe, what you teach, what you refuse to create, what you love, but not waiting for someone else to give you permission to become the person you were meant to be. Do not wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. There is only this moment. This one, and then this one. Each moment becomes a path. Each choice becomes a direction. Each generation becomes a bridge. And you are standing on that bridge. Now. Behind you are the generations who carried you here. Ahead of you are the generations who will inherit what you leave behind. And beneath you is the earth, breathing, turning, carrying life, giving, waiting. The eclipse will pass. The darkness will move. The light will return. But when it does, the question will remain. Who will you be? Will you return to the old world unchanged? Or will you step forward? Will you carry the fear of what was or the wisdom of what you learned? Will you surrender your power, or will you remember that your choices matter? The new adventure does not require you to know the ending. It only asks you take the next step, and then the other, and then another, until one day you look behind you and you realize that the path you were afraid to walk becomes the path that changed everything. So listen beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the stories that tell you that nothing can change, because the land is still speaking. The mountains are still remembering, and the rivers are still carrying messages towards the sea. The ancestors are still present in the stories we refuse to forget, and the future is waiting. The warrior mother is not coming to save humanity. She is calling humanity to awaken. She is asking you to become powerful over others. She is asking you to become responsible for the power you already possess. She is not asking you to conquer the earth. She is asking you to protect the home that gave you life. And she is not asking you to fear the darkness. She is asking you to walk through it with your eyes open. The eclipse is not the end. It is a threshold. The darkness is not necessarily destruction. It can be transformation. The future is not written. It is being created choice by choice, generation by generation, heart by heart. So rise, remember, listen, protect, create, teach, love, and walk forward. Because somewhere beyond this moment, there is a new horizon. And perhaps the adventure you have been waiting for has already arrived. The land remembers. The ancestors echo, echo, echo. The future waits, and the warrior mother is calling you home.